Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with episode 57 of our Reddit series. This one's going to be some NuclearRevenge featuring EntitledParents, and I know you're going to love this one. NuclearRevenge does still seem to be growing at the moment, so I've tried my absolute best to get the most recent posts I can. Not always possible, but I hope you guys enjoy. So having said that, sit back, relax, and laugh at some NuclearRevenge. This story takes place near the end of high school, where most students would be thinking about what to do next in life. There was this kid who would bully me and 7 other students of the school. Let's call him Jack. Jack has been bullying me for around 3 years, but I was too afraid to do anything about it. And it got to the point that I was ready to get revenge on this guy. Thankfully, I was friends with the bully's sister, let's call her Jenna, and Jenna and Jack's parents had gotten a divorce 4 years prior to this event. But Jenna still talked to her sister that lived with Jack and their mother. Jenna hated Jack with a passion, which meant she was all over this plan we made to get revenge. Jenna and I knew where Jack would hang out nearly every day while at school, so I had Jenna go to the vantage point where she could record me walking up to the bully. Since this spot was a blind area for school cameras, it's just what we had to do. And what Jack would do when I did. Mostly pushing and kicking me, typical bully stuff, and I would use my phone to record audio. We did this for nearly 3 months to make sure we had plenty of evidence. Over the 3 months, we discovered that I wasn't the only one being bullied. There were 7 other kids that Jack would bully, so we got all of them onto the plan. At the end of the 3 months, Jenna and I nearly had 100 different video and audio recordings of me and the 7 other kids being bullied by Jack. Once we had around a month before we finished high school, I gave all of the recordings to the principal of the school and Jack's mother, and this easily got him expelled from the school. Since it was around the time that students would be applying to go to further education, college, etc., I had Jenna talk to her sister and find out where Jack had planned to go after high school. I won't say where it was for privacy reasons, and once we found out, I sent all of the recordings to the college that he wanted to go to, which made them deny his application. This continued to the point where nearly every college that he could go to had denied his application, and they had to move to another country just so that Jack could have a future. The aftermath of this was that just before Jack and his mother moved to another country, Jack's mother gave possession of Jenna's sister to her father. I was talking to Jenna about it, and it turned out that Jack's mother was harassing Jenna's dad, and we didn't know. So our plan actually helped Jenna's father as well. I'll tell you, this is a lot of effort to go to get back at your high school bully. The ongoing dedication that this would require to constantly contact different colleges to make sure that he didn't get accepted is insane. The whole moving to the countryside of things seems a little bit far-fetched, but hey, who am I to judge? Okay, so for some backstory. About 2 years ago, I gave my car to my nephew and it was a 1968 Camaro. It was a really great car that I rebuilt the engine and transmission for. I got rid of all the rust, painted the car, and put in the interior. When I was done rebuilding this suspension, I realized that I didn't need the car anymore. My nephew had gotten a driver's license a month ago, so I decided I would give him the car. He was going to school with a lot of bratty kids and entitled parents. Every person who had a driver's license was driving a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi, all brand new. At first he was laughed at for driving an old car and everyone was saying that he was poor and was driving an old piece of crap. That car was more reliable than a lot of their brand new cars. He wanted to give it back to me just because he was embarrassed. I gave him a long talk and said how he was driving a piece of history and how he should be proud of driving such a car. This picked his soul up. I said how that car was gaining value and how their brand new cars were losing value. The next day, he comes to me and is happy with the decision he made. He kept the car and didn't care about those brats. About a month later, he comes to me and says that the car was vandalized. Apparently he was in school and some brat came up to the car and thrashed it. All the windows gone, paint scratched to hell, dents, dings, holes, everything was trashed. The interior was ripped apart and they literally took a dump in the car. I was pissed when I heard that and asked if he knew who it was. He said that he did know who it was and even saw the person who was breaking the car. I asked him for the name and searched it on Facebook. There he was with his brand new BMW and his address right there. I started planning and fixing the car. I made sure to make everything the same, and one day I had a plan. I was going to go to the guy's house and strip his car for most of the parts to cover the repair cost. One night I went to his house, me with 4 trucks and 15 other people, and we get there and immediately start working. We took this thing apart so much that it was basically an empty shell. Engine and transmission taken, interior taken, glass taken, suspension taken. We stripped this thing to the bare metal. The next day, the guy posted a picture of his car and how he was going to find the person who did this and how the person who did is going to pay. A week later, I give the car back to my nephew and he goes to school in it with me following him in my 1969 Charger. We roll into the parking lot and we see the guy who destroyed the car. His jaw dropped to the floor when he saw the car that looked like nothing had ever happened to it. After the school ended, I came to the parking lot and meet my nephew who is waiting there. Before we roll out, I drive next to the guy and say, "I think you lost this," and I throw the hood ornament at him and drive off. The guy was shocked and just stood there. I'm happy to say that my nephew still drives the car and is happy. Also, the bullying stopped and he was finally able to find a girlfriend. You know, a lot of these I don't really find it justified, but this one here is an eye for an eye. You're gonna ruin my car, I'm gonna ruin yours. Yours might be worth a lot more, but don't go messing with someone's car unless you're willing to get your car messed with in return, right? For context, I was tall for a 5th grader, but I was a friendly giant type. I wasn't violent, though I had anger issues. They usually came out as verbal berating of whoever had attracted my wrath. I was the kid that made teachers go to the counselor in tears, but that made me an easy target for bullying. They wanted a reaction without the threat of violence. As for the incident, it was during gym class and we were wrestling and it was my turn. Since I was in a weight class of my own, I won almost every time. Some of the bullies didn't like that. So 2 of them wrenched my arms out from under me while I was in a match and a 3rd did a John Cena slam onto my face, breaking a $200 pair of prescription glasses. I probably should have taken them off, at least that's what the bullies' parents said when they refused to pay for them. My mum decided to punish me by taking all of my personal savings. I was going to buy a PS3 at the time, but now I had to pay for new ones. I was pissed. This was completely ridiculous. They assaulted me and I was being punished for it. That was 3 years of savings down the drain. So I went up to that kid the day after and I told him to meet me behind school to settle this. He and his 2 cohorts came down and I told them what happened. They realized how much money I lost and that 5th grade honor rules were clear that behind the school fight was necessary. So I told them it was 3 versus 1. If I won, they would pay me back. If they won, I'd never eat them for the crap they pulled in the future. So we went at it. I rammed the main kid into the wall and headbutted him, causing a bloody nose. He punched me and I got swarmed. I was busted up pretty bad, but so were they. It ended when their leader tried to deer hug me into the ground. In my adrenaline-fueled rage, I bit him. More specifically, I bit his ear, tearing most of it off. Everyone froze at his scream of pain. We ran to the nurse, temporarily calling truce as you do in these situations, and we got an earful about fighting. The mother wanted to press charges, but the bully admitted to instigating the incident, so it was a case of self-defense. We all got suspended, the bullying never stopped. But when it got too much, I would begin to walk forward and no matter who it was, they'd run for the hills. My nickname for the next 2 years until I moved was Feral. I always worry with these stories that I'm going to come across something completely vulgar. At least with Entitled Parents, I can feel pretty confident in reading them out without having previously read them, but with these, you just never know what you're going to get. I mean, this for example, biting someone's ear off, it just fits so perfectly into Nuclear Revenge. This is a story that me and my family always bring up when we're out with our relatives. So anyway, when my mother was 8, let's call her YM for younger mum, she had a brother who we'll call B. B was about twice as old as YM was and much larger than her too. At about 14, B took up the habit of snatching food from my mum's plate during dinner when no one was looking. This was, at first, small stuff like a couple of fries or some corn or peas. Eventually, he got to the point where B would swap out his plate with my mum's plate and my mum would tell her parents this, and all B ever got was a couple of slaps on the wrists and no actual punishment. After a few years of B doing this, my mum had had enough. She knew the parents wouldn't do anything, so that Tuesday night, my mum told herself that if he stole her food again, she would take matters into her own hands. Dinner time comes and it's mac and cheese night. Sure enough, B took my mum's plate again, and this time she grabbed her fork and stabbed him in the back of his hand. B bled hard and began screaming bloody murder. My mum was immediately grounded and B just needed to wear a bandage around his hand. B, however, never stole my mum's plate again after that. Well, I guess that's one way to stop somebody from stealing your food. It does seem a little bit extreme, but that's the point of Nuclear Revenge. So, I lived in a small suburb in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas most of my young life in the 80s and 90s. In this town, high school football, being American football where everyone smashes into each other like a bunch of savages, was like a local religion, and the Booster Club was like the mafia. Even going as far as buying off the cops to let their precious football star kids run amok across town, usually pinning the blame for their shenanigans on bad kids like myself. I wasn't popular. In fact, I was quite the opposite because in a small town in the mid-90s, a nerdy, grungy metalhead with no interest in sports such as myself stuck out like a sore thumb. My home and property was often the subject of vandalism, much to me and my dad's annoyance. The most annoying thing was having to buy a new mailbox like every few days because it would be smashed into bits. One day, me and a couple of pals were poking around a scrapyard when I found a metal pole with a flat piece of metal across the top. Ideas started churning in my head. I dragged it home along with some other metal scraps and welded together a 100+ pound Invincible steel mailbox and cemented it into the ground where our flimsy stainless steel one used to be. My dad high-fived me for my ingenuity and the welding skills that I learned in shop class. Over a week went by and no mailbox incidents happened. But at school, there was a huge buzz because one of the star football players seriously effed up his shoulder. He had a football scholarship waiting for him when he graduated, but that was ended as his injury left him unable to play ever again. I never put two and two together until my dad got a summons to court for the malicious injury of Jockey McFnuts. It turns out this a-hole was the one destroying my mailboxes. He would have his friend drive past my house in his car at high speeds while he smacked it with a baseball bat while he leaned out from the passenger side window. When I installed the solid steel mailbox, he tried the same thing and, well, bye-bye shoulder, bye-bye football career. The lawsuit against me and my dad never got off the ground. The parents dropped it when my dad's lawyer successfully wrangled a change of venue due to threatening answering machine messages from the local booster club. I did feel a little bad at first as I never intended to destroy the guy's dreams for the future, but now that I look back at it, he brought it all upon himself for being an entitled scumbag. I've read quite a few of these types of stories and it just seems like this is such a common thing to happen in the US. I don't get why people aren't catching on to the fact that other people are reinforcing their mailboxes and stopping. With these types of stories becoming more and more public and more known, it's just going to happen more and more people are going to get hurt. When I was in 5th grade, there was a kid in my class who was just horrible. He threatened me, stole my schoolwork, verbally abused me, and got away with everything because his dad was the school gym teacher and talked the principal out of ever taking action. This monster brought me to tears daily with his cruelty and no one could do anything about it. One day at recess, I had to run off to cry somewhere when I heard some girls talking. Now, evil kid's dad liked to go to the girls' locker room before gym class, ostensibly to make sure they weren't goofing off, which was crap since it was the guys who were always late. As you can imagine, this meant he daily saw hundreds of tween girls in various states of undress as they got into their gym uniform. But there's more. Apparently, he took a particular liking to some girls and made sure that they didn't have to work as hard and got the best lockers. What I overheard was one of these favorites talking about getting creepy notes in her locker and not knowing who they were from. I don't know the actual content of the notes since all she said was they were weird and made her uncomfortable. I was a precious young thing and my parents had drilled into me that if an adult is making me uncomfortable, I always tell whoever is in charge of them. And if I don't know that person, I tell the police. I followed these instructions and told the principal that the evil kid's dad was being creepy, giving specific details. This wasn't enough to get him fired or arrested, but it was enough for them to do an investigation. And boy, did they find some crap. His work computer was full of pictures he'd taken of the girls in gym class. All of them showing a girl who clearly didn't know he was photographing her, and all at inappropriate angles. 2 weeks after my complaint, we had a new gym teacher and evil kid's family moved away. And to think, if his son hadn't bullied me, I never would have overheard those girls and he never would have been reported. Honestly, this one actually sounds well deserved. This dude was an absolute creep taking pictures of young girls. He deserved to probably not only get fired, but have some kind of legal action taken against him as well. I hope he lost his teaching license or whatever it is that teachers have, and he was never allowed around children that age again. My mum's grandfather was well known for being extremely abusive to his wife, children, and grandchildren. Now, my mum is a take no crap kind of person. She has never had any trouble standing up for herself, even to her family. When my mum was a teen, old granddad got really sick. And if he had any hope of surviving, he needed a blood donation from a relative that was an exact match to him. Everyone got tested. The perfect life-saving match? My mother. She refused to donate and not one person could do a thing about it. Granddad died soon after. I asked my mum if she regretted her choice and she said, not one bit. While I think this is kind of a sad story, it just goes to show that you really should live your life trying to do the right thing by as many people as you can. You never know when you're going to need to lean on somebody else, and in this case it's a life or death situation, so why burn bridges when you could just be nice to them? Especially when it's your family members. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Nuclear Revenge featuring Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. I know this one was a touch shorter than the episodes we've done recently. The thing with Nuclear Revenge is a lot of the good stories are 5 and 6 days old, and there's a very good chance if you'd like this subreddit, you've probably already seen them on somebody else's channel. So on that note, I'm trying my best to make sure that I'm getting content that you guys won't have seen before, because I find it makes the videos much more enjoyable not knowing what's going to happen at the end of the story. I hope you guys appreciate it. It does take me a little bit longer to find posts this way because I do have to read through a lot more, but at the end of the day, it's about the content that you guys are enjoying and what's going to make it better for you. But otherwise, I'll pretty much wrap things up there. Just as a general reminder, I do have an Instagram and a Twitter. If you want to follow me on both of those or even one of them, they are both at Bumfris. Feel free to send me a message. I do have quite a few in requests at the moment, so I'm going through and replying to as many of those as I can. Even if it's just a hi, I'm happy to say hi back, have a little conversation. But yeah, that is that for today's video. I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you all tomorrow for a straight episode of Entitled Parents. Bye.